I can never ever truly go back to being like a full staff nurse, because I'm aware that the traveler next to me, she has more of a freedom than I do, but we're doing the same exact job. But you give the staff a break, because they're kind of like, yo, we've had Mary for a month. I've had Mary 5 times in the past 2 weeks. Like, they're exhausted. I mean, people are annoying. That's the reality of life.
They are.
Now they're sick. They're not feeling well. They don't have their family. Woe is me, and woe on you.
Yeah. Okay.
Am I looking in the right direction? Like,
yeah, you're good. I can see you. Yeah, the lighting's good. You look great. Your makeup's good. Hair is popping. It's perfect. Okay. You ready?
I think so.
Okay. Hey, you guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Kay, and we have our special guest. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Tahina.
Okay, so she's a travel nurse, and I knew her since 9th grade. Do you remember when we first met in 9th grade?
I do. Oh my gosh, brand new. Oh.
Yeah, and I showed you around, right? I think I did peer something. What was it called? Peer mediators?
You were like a peer. Yeah, you showed me the orientation. I don't know, you gave me like a little brief orientation.
Yeah, and then I showed you around. You know what I remember from you a lot in high school? The thing I remember about you the most? I remember that you always had food in your bag.
I did. I still do. I was like, pull out my little plastic plate with the Hot Pocket.
That's what I was gonna say. You always had a Hot Pocket.
Oh yeah, breakfast, my favorite meal of the day. Oh my God, that lasted even in college, like even in nursing school.
Wait, so as a nurse, you still have like food in your bag?
As a nurse, even I always had food in my scrub pockets. But then on top of that, in class, like they knew when to give us breaks based on when my food ran out. Because then I'd start snoozing. Like, no food, I fall asleep. So at some point when they saw, I was like, all right, we'll take a 10-minute break. Like, yeah, me, food, that we just go hand in hand. Well,
I guess people don't really change.
No, I'm eating healthier now. That's been the hardest part.
Okay, good. But I'm really proud of you though, that you're now a nurse, you're grown, like, you know, that's really good. Like you're actually living your dreams.
We are.
We're gonna talk all about it today. So like, let's get started talking about your history. Like, okay, so what made you want to become a nurse?
So dating back, you know, I was raised in New York. I used to originally want to be an OBGYN. There used to be the show on TLC in the mornings, and they would have like baby stories and, you know, like bringing home baby. And from then I was like, I want to be an OBGYN. But then at some point, I want to say a few years later, I saw a documentary, and this physician like just went into details, and he basically said he has 2 years left, but he doesn't want to be a doctor anymore.
Wow.
Yes. And he said, however, he's invested so much time, so much money, that he just has to continue. But he realized it wasn't his passion because of the hours. He just went into details. And so for me, I was just like, okay, I don't think I want to invest all that time in medical school. That was like my own understanding of all the different things I wanted to do. And then from then, I was like, all right, what could I do? That's when around the time you started hearing more about nurse practitioners a little bit. And then they used to whisper, you know, about midwives. And so I was like, maybe I'll become something along that route. And then I learned more about nursing through my aunts being nurses as well. And from there, that's how I decided to go into school for nursing.
So did you know, like, before you went to college that you wanted to be a nurse?
No. I almost submitted as a political science major.
Wow.
Because high school. You remember I ran for like vice presidency and all that? Yes. And then class senior. Yeah. So ever since elementary school, middle school, and high school, I always loved the idea of politics and advocacy. So I kind of bounced back and forth around there. I want to say this was back in 2008. They said nursing was on the rise. And then I found out you can do you work 3 days. And from then I was like, oh, maybe I can start by doing nursing, and then I can switch over and become a lobbyist for healthcare. So I still had like that idea of I'd be switching over, but wouldn't be doing bedside, like, 100% of the time.
So like when you were in college, like what was your path to nursing? Did you do like the typical
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was a traditional nursing major. So you apply to, the university that I went to, they were, it was when you graduated, you'd have a BSN. And so I applied to the actual university as a pre-nursing major. And so the first 2 years, you take your prerequisites, and then from there you apply into the College of Nursing. And then when you get accepted, which was very competitive, then you finish your last 2 years as an actual nursing major.
Oh, that's perfect. So during college, you did like rotations as a nurse, like clinicals and stuff?
Yes, we did clinicals for the last 2 years. So when you actually got into the nursing program, you jumped right into doing clinicals. And they switched you off. So sometimes you'd be in med surge, then you go to pediatrics, you go to L&D, which I fell in love with even more. And you went to like different departments. And then from there, usually like your final semester, if you get chosen for the specific specialty that you'd like, then you can do that to finish up as your, what do they call it? They called it, what was it? Your preceptorship, I think is the name they called it. Yeah.
So is it like guaranteed after your first 2 years that you get into the nursing program at your school? It's not guaranteed?
Oh, yes. So for my particular university, and every university and college is different. There's different routes. Some people decide to do community college, which does save a lot more money. So you're still taking the same regular classes, and then you apply into a school that's going to guarantee your credits transfer. In my case, I applied to the university as a pre-nursing major. So at that time, you were guaranteed admissions, but then they actually removed that. So you went from being guaranteed a seat to a nursing program to competing with thousands of other students applying. So I, unfortunately, my sophomore year, which was my second year in college, I had no life. So literally I studied, I needed to make the dean's list. I did as much crazy community service thing. I went to see my advisor. Like I needed to get into that program, and they scared everybody. So some people were applying for backup schools. And my family was like, no, if you apply, they're gonna know, conspiracy theory. So I only applied to just that one school, and if I didn't get in, we don't know how that story went because it didn't happen. I got in.
So would you have had to just finish college like a regular student?
Some people either spend an additional year and they try to apply again. I knew a lot of nursing majors that just switched over to like psychology or social work, something that will take a majority of their prerequisites. Or some of them actually left my university altogether to go into other nursing programs that did accept them.
Okay, so when you talked about this specialty that you said you did L&D,
yes,
like is it based on your GPA? Like how do you choose?
So for specialty, it just depends what you like. So some people have absolutely no clue what type of patient population or demographics that they like. Others do. So some people are like, I love kids, I want to be a pediatric nurse. Other people, they love surgery, so they want to be an OR. Other people, they just want to be a nurse, so they get into whatever they can get into. And then as time goes by and you come in contact with different nurses and specialties, you start to research more, and you'll ask certain questions to some of the more senior nurses, like, hey, what it's like to be, like, how is it like, being a cath lab nurse? How is it like to be, an OR nurse? And you get to shadow as well. Hospitals are big on letting you shadow. For me, I always loved L&D. So that's actually what I wanted to do. Off the back, but that's what they discouraged. And that's one thing I always tell new grads. I was like, not new grads, nursing students and new grads, I tell them, if you really want to do peds, don't let anybody tell you start with med surge first, because if you're on a unit that's not feeding your soul and your spirit and your interest, you're going to potentially get burnt out, and you're gonna have a bad taste for nursing altogether. So it's better, if you think you want pediatrics, try to get into a fellowship, and then you can be like, yo, I hate this, and then you back off. but start with what you think you have interest in and go from there. But don't get discouraged because, oh, med surge, you need all these skills. You get the skills that you need for the unit that you're on, period. And you're more focused and you have more longevity that way in your profession. I didn't know that. No one told me that.
Yeah, because usually they tell you have to start off with med-surg first.
Yes.
And then you can transition to other things.
Yeah. And guess what? Any med-surg place, I mean, some nurses, they're med-surg nurses. They love it. And that's great. That's you. But if you don't think it's your passion, do not get sucked into the idea of you just need 2 years and then you can go to another unit. Like, no, half the time, if you have 6 months of experience as a nurse, if you can apply and get into a fellowship in the specialty that you have interest in, go for it. If anything, it might even make it easier. Because when you wait too long, it becomes more competitive, and now there's more fellowship programs. When I graduated, this was back in 2012, I didn't have the opportunity to be able to apply to fellowships. They just didn't have it as often as they do now. So I had no opportunity to get into labor and delivery. And so that's how the majority of my background ended up being cardiac step down, because that was the next organ that I love.
So you do have to graduate first and then do the fellowship?
You graduate nursing school. No, not even graduate. You survive nursing school.
Oh my God.
You survive nursing school. And then you graduate from the anguish of studying to take the boards. And then after you go through that obstacle of waiting to see if you pass or fail, then you become a nurse. And
it's not easy at all.
My graduation date, I was not excited about the nursing. I mean, it's okay, graduation. I'm like, we're not nurses yet. We have this, we have this big mountain to climb. So yeah, once you graduate, you then start the process of applying to get your papers from the Board of Nursing from whatever state you're in. And then from there, you're able to select a date when to test, and then you take your tests. And ideally within 48 hours, you find out if you pass or not. And then that's when you're officially granted that registered nurse title. Yeah.
So can you work in multiple states as a nurse, or is it just once you take your board, is it just for that state?
So you can actually, let's say I'm in the state of Virginia. I'm a compact state. I think if anyone is in a compact state, which means that I went to a school, an accredited nursing school in Virginia. I passed my board in Virginia, but nationally throughout the states, I'm entitled to work in several different states under my license, my Virginia license. So I can go to Texas with my Virginia license, Rhode Island with my Virginia license, North Carolina, South Carolina, those states, I can go with my Virginia license. It's approved and accepted there. But if you're in a state let's say California or a state like New York, if you want to practice in their state, that's the only state you can practice in. And then if you want to go to, let's say, Virginia from New York, you then have to apply for a Virginia license. But you do not have the same privileges as I do because I'm originally under a compact state licensure. And if someone is in a compact state, go ahead and just get your license underneath that board, underneath that state board. And then if you have to move to another state that's not compact, that process really isn't that difficult. So you're better off getting the benefits of having the one that you can, the multi-state license privileges as opposed to one that's single. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go to another state, and you're not, you don't have the compact license, do you have to actually take the boards again?
No, you just apply it. There's an application process. There's a fee. You have to have your transcripts sent to that new state board, and then you have to do fingerprints and background check. And every state is different. So some states, if you do all of that in a condensed period of time, you'll get your new license in 2 weeks. Other states, they consider them walk-through states. So you just go to the board, you're like, hey, this is my license, here's my information, and they'll kind of give you that paperwork within a week or so. And it depends if you want a temporary license for that state or if you want a permanent license for that state. So let's say, for example, New York, it maybe took me around 2 weeks to get a New York license, whereas California, that's the big dog. You're paying like a $300 application fee, plus you're sending your transcript, plus you're doing the fingerprints based on the rules that they have outlined, and you can wait as long as like 2 months to as long as like 6 months, because it's a very popular state.
So like if you're a travel nurse and you want to work in California, you have to like do all this stuff ahead of time and then
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I always recommend everyone cluster when they send out information. So you get that application fee, and like with the checks, you get the application submitted with the check, you get your transcript sent over to them, you log on to their website where you can check the status of it, and then you kind of just wait, get everything together, because it does take some time, and depending on the season, it's either quicker or slower. So summertime, it's going to be packed. Everyone's remembering California. In the winter, it might be easier for you to get your paperwork checked.
Yeah, because I guess during the summer, like everyone's trying to do it, so it's a lot slower.
And if you don't have your license, you cannot practice in that state. So you can be like, oh, I have a job, I need to start on this date. They don't care. Like, that's your business. That's your business. So I would recommend you research the states that you have to do. Some also require you to take courses. I think like Pennsylvania, I had to take like a CEU. I think it's like continuing education credits. I don't know what they but I had to take like a child protective service course thing, and that was a part of one of their requirements. Same thing with New York.
Okay. So like when you first became a nurse, like what area did you work in? Did you work in L&D right away, or did you do med surg?
No, I definitely didn't do med surg. I went straight into a specialty cardiac step down. So med surg, no offense to anybody, it's like the bottom of the barrel.
It's hard. Med surg is hard.
No. So med surg is not hard per se.
You don't think so?
Med surg is the bottom of the barrel. So they send whoever they can't send home to med surg. So as a nurse, when you read the doctor's note, you can tell the doctor's not really sure why the patient's here. The doctor just knows they can't legally send the patient home because it'll sound bad. And so this is where you, as the med surg nurse, you're kind of running around because you'll have a higher ratio. That's everywhere, all the states. So I dodged that because I was aware of that, and I went to a specialty. So when you do like step down units, depending on what state you're in, ideally, you get 3 to 4 patients, and they're very sick. So step down is the unit that comes after ICU. Med surg is the unit that comes after something in between step down. Like it's basically, we can't send you home, but you just can't stay here. Like, we can't send you home, but we can't really focus too much on you. So I think med surg is at the bottom of the barrel. And then from there, the other units are up. So specialty units are, L&D, ICU, PACU, cath lab. I knew I loved the heart, so I went into step down. And then from there, I started looking at my options from there.
So is step down another word for PCU?
Yes.
Your unit? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we call here.
No, actually, no, I'm saying yes. It fluctuates. The stuff that I learned in traveling, it fluctuates. In traveling, they'll tell you it's a step down unit or a PCU, progressive care unit, and you show up and it's like a med surg tele unit. So when you actually are told it's a tele unit, it's likely a med surg floor that they smack cardiac monitors on. So that means a legit med surg floor. I don't know how that looks like. I don't want to know how that looks like, because the med surg tele floors, they're rough. And the fake PCU floors, you don't have just 3-4 patients. You're getting like 5 patients. Some states will even push as much as 6. And I'm finding out that as you go further south and as you go further north, those ratios become wild.
Yeah, I mean, because when I work with nurses doing med surg, they had like 5 or 6 patients. It was rough sometimes.
That's pretty good, because I ended up
that's good.
No, I said that's pretty good because I ended up on one of those PCU tele units in like Rhode Island.
Yeah.
7 patients, up to 8.
Wow, that's not safe.
I refused the 8, and I was so shocked. I accepted the 7th, and by the grace of God, I unfortunately that was the first time I had that many patients, and so I think that's all I can say. But it was hard to recall all the people I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you see the dangers in having like so many patients as a nurse?
Yes. Yes. Look, I'm so shocked. I'm still in shock. I've been in so many situations where honestly I just had to pray over my patients.
Wow.
I'm like, Father, angels, like watch over my patients. And with me, I'm like, where's wood? I think this is wood. I've been a nurse for what, more than 7 years now? About 7 years. Yeah, more than 7 years now. And I haven't had a fall on my shift with any of my patients. And it's because I'm big on taking fall precaution risks. So for me, when I'm in those dangerous situations, whether we're short staffed or not, I do make sure all my patients have bed alarms on, even if they're up at lib, meaning, up and moving by themselves. Just in case they fall or something happens, at least I know they're getting up. And the minute you hear that alarm sound, someone will at least eventually check on them, including myself. So I always make sure they have bed alarms on, especially if I'm doing night shift. Always make sure they have their call bell, even if they're annoying. And that's the reality of it. I prefer they call me and you see, I'm not even gonna say it. I prefer they call me and I show up right away than for them not to have that available resource. So bed alarms, call bell, and I leave the doors open. I'm that nurse, I'm leaving the door open because I may not be able to get into your room, but if it's a busy shift and I'm running up and down the hall, you see I'm running up and down the hall. If you really need me, you might flag me down. But also, I can always peek in on you and see you're with family, see there's a doctor's in there, PT, OT. I have a visual on you. So for me, I've always kept my patients safe by the grace of God. And I've been in a lot of dangerous situations as a traveler. And that's where I learned how to advocate for myself, especially because that's your license and you have nobody to protect you when you enter another facility and no one knows you.
So do you think they give you harder assignments as a travel nurse? Yeah. She was like, yeah, duh.
Yeah, like no, but anyone who watches this, I want them to have that same attitude. Yes, you're going to get harder assignments and you can't bicker about it as if like you're entitled. Now you can advocate for yourself and say, listen, it's not okay to give me 5 patients all on contact, 3 jump out the bed, no sitter. It's happened. So you want to advocate for yourself like, hey, someone needs to take a look at this assignment and rearrange it. So you can always, mention that. But if it's an assignment, you're just like, oh my gosh, all my patients are contact. Like, well, that's nothing we can do. You kind of you let it slide off your shoulder because you have to view it from the staff standpoint. They're just as tired and exhausted as you are. And ultimately, the staff is looking to maintain their own and they're looking to keep their own happy and content. The reason why you're needed is because they've been struggling and drowning for as long as possible. Same reason as many of us, we're kind of like, you know what, we're tired of being on a unit. Like I'm just over, coming in, I'm over this BS and, we have 1,000 things to say. So you decide to go out and travel. It's like, yeah, guess what? The same way you're feeling, some of those nurses are feeling the same exact way, except they have families and they can't just peace out. Yeah, so I always say take it lightly because the goal is to bring you in to help and to keep their staff members, ideally staff members, as opposed to quitting, like the way we travelers did. Like, we're like, peace out, F this place, you keep it moving.
I mean, I found a lot of times as like float nurses, like they used to complain because they said they're seen as kind of like the break when they go on the floor, so they get the harder assignments.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, so do you feel like you're like the break?
Yes, and I've also been a floater. So even at my per diem, I signed up for full pool. You get paid more. You don't really know anybody. You have your favorite floors. Some hospitals do great at keeping you on a unit for 12 hours. Others, they'll rotate you every 4 hours, which sucks. But you give the staff a break because they're kind of like, yo, we've had Mary for a month. I've had Mary 5 times in the past 2 weeks. Like, they're exhausted. I mean, people are annoying. That's the reality of life.
They are.
Now they're sick. They're not feeling well. They don't have their family. Woe is me and woe on you.
Yeah.
So people are annoying. So yes, you're the break. And so even in those situations, the way I also look at it, I'm like, you know what? As long as I'm able to manage it well and my patients remain safe, and if I need help, that's what I'm asking you. If you're charged, I'm asking you. If there's a problem, I'm paging the doctors. I'm using my resources. If you decide not to ask for help, that's your business. If you decide not to delegate, that's your business. But ultimately, if the resources are there, you utilize them and you get through your shift. Like, my main goal is my patients are safe, everything is good. The rest of that, the rest of those, the ish can wait. And then as a floater, the best part is, especially if you're per diem, you're not even gonna see them tomorrow. You know what?
Exactly.
Look, I was gonna say, I just might call out for today. Like, I need a break from yesterday.
Yep. You're like, okay, let me just get through these 12 hours. Yeah. I won't have to see you tomorrow.
Deuces. Like, look, I was just like, deuces. You give report to the nurse, and it's like, oh, are you back tomorrow? Nope. And you just keep it moving.
But do you think they felt like, okay, well, she get paid more, so she can deal with them since she gets paid way more than we do?
They do. They do feel that way, and I agree. Which is also why, for me, I can never ever truly go back to being like a full staff nurse, because I'm aware that the traveler next to me, she has more of a freedom than I do, but we're doing the same exact job, the same exact title, the same exact patients, acuity or ratio. And the difference is all companies pay differently. But what I like about travel companies is that I hear there's bi-weekly travel companies. I'm not that type of bird that'll accept that. I'm sorry, bi-weekly as a traveler, like, I don't see the full perk to that. What I love about being a traveler is every Friday, whether it's a good week, it's a bad week, it's a F this ish, I'm quitting week. Friday comes, you're like, oh yeah. This is what I'm here for. I want that Friday reassurance each and every week.
We'll talk about your history as a nurse. Like, why did you become a nurse? All that.
Oh my gosh.
Don't think about the trauma. We're not
going to... that's the question people ask me now, and I never have an answer to give them.
Okay, think about you, like, before you became a nurse now.
All right, so my real answer is that...
No, don't tell me yet. When we start, you can tell me.
Okay, so it's not a good answer.
Okay, what's the answer?
The answer is something along the lines of, I didn't want my parents to be paying student loans for me.
Oh my gosh.
And I figured, hey, nursing, okay, there you go. This is a question I always struggle with now. Okay, I'm gonna have the right answer when the time comes.
Okay. I mean, I don't want you to lie. I want you to keep it real.
Okay.